Believe it or not, this guy actually has friends.
Nice.
This is Scotty G and Friends on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
All right, folks, let's get it. Welcome on in. It's another edition of the Scotty G and Hands for now. We got some stuff brewing. Let's just say that. Next week's going to be fun. Hey, Lloyd, how you doing? We are live here in Spanish Fork. Love for you to come by because it is a Bar W pop-up. It is, we are in, again, Spanish Fork, the Cal Ranch store, 950 North Main Street. All you have to do is come on by, and you want steaks, you want ground beef. They even have some great jerky as well. Bar W beef here. Now, normally you have to drive down to Nephi to get it or have it shipped to your house. Well, if you're in this Spanish Fork area, just come on by and line up and grab all the steaks, all the beef, and just bring it on home. It's all there for you at Bar W Beef here at the Cal Ranch store in Spanish Fork, 950 North Main Street. And joining us now right out of the gate, when we talk about friends, he is the friend of all friends, Patrick Kinahan. PK, kind enough to join us out of the gate. How are you, sir?
It's funny when you talk about Scotty G and friends because there's a couple of weeks ago when I joined you, and I was doing something with my wife. I said, well, hold on a second. Scotty needs a friend. And then you guys called, and, we did the thing. We talked, and afterwards, she said, oh, is something wrong? I said, what do you mean? Well, you said he needs a friend. Oh, that's the name of his new show. I said, and besides, Scotty, any problems that he got, there's no way I can solve them anyway.
No, I don't know about that. I'm always calling you in weird hours being like, PK, I need some help. Help me out. And you know what? You get back to those mob roots, you know how to solve problems. Let's just say that, man. You take the boy out of Jersey. You can't take Jersey out of the boy. Hey, how big of a deal is –
boy's about – go ahead.
Oh, no, keep going.
Your boy is about ready to be in Nephi. I'm driving south.
Oh, nice.
Heard you talk about what's it called? Bar
W.
Bar W?
Yeah, Bar W. They, in fact, right now we got the pop-up here in Spanish Fork, so we're not quite to Nephi, but we're here in Spanish Fork. And anybody who wants some steaks, they want some ground beef, you got beef tallow, whatever you're looking for, they got it right here at the Cal Ranch store. All right, so breaking news, Rob Wright making his return to BYU, flirted in the portal. Of course, you got Kentucky that went after him hard, but ultimately he decides to stay at BYU. First off, what does this say about BYU when they go toe-to-toe with Kentucky and keep a guy that Mark Pope desperately wanted?
I'm not so sure if it says more for BYU than less about Kentucky, and is that bloom off that rose. I mean, Kentucky is Kentucky, right? They have been an historic program and one of the true blue bloods for many, many, many years. So, yeah, I think you can split it that maybe it's a knock against them. And I wondered how Mark Pope would do under the spotlight. Now, it was hard to win in the West Coast Conference, and you may say, what? Well, the reason why I say that is because, that hard to get kids, what's the incentive for non-LDS kids to go to BYU when they're in the West Coast Conference? Not much. Kentucky's got the money, but you got to win, and is he capable? It's like he got that job because 3 or 4 guys said no, and he was an alumni. He played on the national title team in '96, I think. That's when the Utes were there. But I think Van Horn's junior year, I remember interviewing Mark when he was a player. But for BYU, they're in the game, and they're going to do what they feel is necessary to win. And what that means is you've got to pay, right? I mean, I'm done calling it – it's college basketball, but I'm done when I refer to the NBA, in terms of college basketball, I'm done saying, oh, well, in pro ball, no, because college basketball is pro ball now, right? That's just a fact.
Oh, yeah.
And so they've got the money, and I think it's a good move for both. Maybe they overpaid a little bit, but, there's constant upheaval and turnover. A lot is made with Utah State and the run of coaches that they've had, and they all deserve their accolades, and they all deserve higher-paying jobs, and they got it. But it's not like completely, maybe sprinkle a little bit more. You would know this more than I would, turned over the roster. But the last couple of years, you kept Templin, you kept, obviously, Falslev, and so you had a little bit of continuity, And I think that's what BYU needed this year going into next year. You needed some continuity. You couldn't have everybody be brand new. And now he knows Kevin Young. Kevin Young knows Wright. I think we'll see natural improvement. We tend to judge these guys in snapshots, and that's who they are. And last year, Rob Wright, I know Tim McComb has made some pointed statements about games with no assists. Well, maybe if you have some shooters besides one other who wasn't really totally a pure shooter in the way that Colin Chandler will be, maybe we'll see a different, more modified version of Rob Wright that will be better and conducive to winning. Because why would you want to pass the ball if it wasn't to DeBonsa? Because especially when Richie went down, nobody else can make a shot of any level of consistency.
Yeah. The fact that he is going to be the face of your team, and I know Chandler will be good, and you got the young man Branch, the true freshman, but make no mistake, this is Rob Wright's team. This isn't A.J. DeBonsa. It's nobody else. I mean, he will be the face of BYU basketball going into next year. Do you feel like he's prepared to be able to handle that type of responsibility?
Well, I think he'll know exactly what he's getting into. I think he made some form of – they got so many of these All-American teams, but the academic, I thought I saw something that Tyson, their SID, sent over as far as maybe it was third team, and maybe it was some district or whatever. You know, I got so many of them I can't keep track. But the point I'm making is he's obviously got intelligence, right? If you're making even a third-team academic, that means you handled yourself well enough in the classroom, right? So he should have a better understanding. And I go back into KY's final words, his final interview of the 25-26 season. We're in the hallway at the Moda Center, and he says, shooting is the holy grail for me. I've got to get more shooting. So, all right, you got to take him at his word, right? He knows basketball. He wants more shooting. He wants better shooting. And with that in mind, that gives Rob Wright the opportunity to show a more well-rounded game. Now, he's got to do it. If he's hunting shots all for himself, probably not the best, because the position he plays, you've got to be a leader on the floor. And given the fact that he's going to be, unless I'm, Kadeem Mahbub started a little bit, but he wasn't a full-time starter. I don't think he's put his name in. I haven't looked at the transfer portal in the last 10 minutes, so who knows. But Rob Wright's going to be the only established starter returning, and that brings with it some leadership on the floor, off the floor, get your guys involved, all those types of things. And I'm optimistic that he'll sense the situation and be up for the challenge.
Well, and you mentioned Tim Lacombe. Tim brought up multiple times throughout the season about connectivity, and that you can bring together a lot of superstars and you can bring a lot of very talented players, but ultimately you got to have some level of chemistry, and you have to have some level of guys that are connected together. And I think having guys that are around the program certainly help. You brought up Mason Falslev and Carson Templin. I think it was, Utah State probably had to way overpay to keep at least Carson Templin. Mason Falslev probably came back at market value or a little bit lower. But honestly, when you have guys that know the culture and know what's expected, that can translate through a locker room. So I think that's really important for BYU just from their standpoint. You could spend all kinds of money and bring in, a new batch of superstars, but if you're just cobbling a bunch of guys together and saying go out there and play well, sometimes that's tough to do. To have guys that have been around the program, I think, is really, really valuable for Kevin Young going into this year.
I think it's critical. Go back to the 80s when the Dream Team, they were putting them, not the Dream Team, but the Olympic team, they're putting them together, and they were struggling because we saw the advancements of the international players, and throwing these guys together a couple of weeks before wasn't doing the job, right? There needs to be some level of continuity, and particularly at BYU, and why not have it as a point guard who the ball is in his hands a lot, and he can set the tone. Plus with BYU, it's a different situation for non-LDS guys to come in. We have to acknowledge that. Whoop-de-doo, they can wear earrings now, but there's still other things that they need to abide by. And Rob Wright can talk to those guys and say, hey, man, we need you to adhere to the rules or whatever it might be, and here's how you do it, yada, yada. I've been through it. You can do it. So I expect Rob Wright to take a much greater leadership role. And that might mean he might have to step out of his comfort zone a little bit because he's a quiet kid, right? He's fine doing interviews. I interviewed him several times. He's got no problem doing that. But maybe he needs to be a little more vocal because I think last year the heart and soul of the talent was AJ, obviously enormous talent. Everybody sees that. But I think the heart and soul was Richie. Richie goes down, and that was obviously a big-time blow. Well, now you don't have a Richie Saunders returning. You got a Dawson Baker. He's more of a role player. And the Kozlowski kid is a local kid, LDS kid. Hopefully he's not injured and he can show what he can do. I saw him play in high school. He's a knockdown shooter. Get him the ball, he'll make shots, get him out on the floor, hopefully for him and for the team. So I suspect that Rob Wright will emerge as the things that you're saying. And there's no question continuity is a factor. They can bring in all those new coaches, and I think the coaches at Utah State, probably Falstaff and Templin, probably told them, hey, some of the things that we do here, and if you're smart enough, you listen to your guys, and then you go from there.
Yeah. By the way, another player coming to BYU, and this is going to go way under the radar. He's not going to move the meter like the Chandler transfer or the certainly Rob Wright coming back. But Jake Whalen, who was, I think he started at Southern Utah, then went to Clemson last year, is now going to be, I think he started at Utah, then he went to Clemson, and now he'll be at BYU. That's the kind of player that I think Kevin Young can really lean on because he's long, he's athletic, but he can shoot. And that's a guy that is going to win you a game or two that you probably have no business winning coming in February or March. One of those guys that afterwards you're like, hey, if he doesn't go 4 for 5 from the three-point line, we don't win this game. One of those role players that are going to step up. I'm not even saying he's going to be a starter, but he provides good shooting. And I think those are the kind of role players you really need to work into your system with a lot of these big guns.
Scotty, man, I thought here you were just a football guy, but listening to you talking hoops is just warming my heart, man. I'm telling you, I want to get down in the stands and guard you next time I see you because you know basketball. That Utah State stuff is rubbed off on you. Yeah, Whalen is absolutely the type of player they need. He's a local kid. I believe he signed with BYU, might have a mission involved, and then went to Utah, and then obviously played. And I saw him play, and I was wondering, why not go after these types of kids? There's a couple other kids out there, too. Andy Toulson's son, you could have used him, and I think it's up to Kevin Young and his staff to show these kids a little more love than maybe they were showed last year at this time that caused them to go other places. Because look at the bench that they had. BYU's bench sucked. Let's call it like it is.
Yeah.
It was just wildly inconsistent, didn't give enough production. I made a statement on the morning show, and that's just one of the multitude of reasons why you should listen to the morning show now and forever, or at least until I'm on it, and then after I leave, I don't care. But I still have several years to go. And I said that this team, don't stay with me, Scotty. Don't make me have to repeat it. I want you to stay on my train of thought. You still
I got
with
you.
me? Are
I'm
you
with
still
you.
with me? Okay,
Oh, yeah.
You're still with me. That BYU's had a lot of teams that made the NCAA tournament, and they'd go one and done, right? I made the statement that this year's past team that went one and done might have had the least depth of any of the teams that had been in that situation before because they didn't have the type of players, the BYU kind of guys. We know who they are. You know, they may not be wildly talented, but if you leave them open, they can make a shot. And they didn't have that last year. We used to I joke about it. Man, if one of their guys, not their big three, and then was whittled down to the big two with the injury, if one of them made a shot in the first half, it's like, oh, my gosh, maybe he'll actually make 2 or 3 shots in the second half. You were like, it's almost breathless with anticipation. Oh, can he finally be the guy? And the answer usually was no, no, and no. And we remember Kennard Davis had one good game. I think it was against Arizona, and everybody was going ape, you know what, because it wasn't there, and they didn't get enough shots. And maybe you could say that, well, that's on KY. Develop the bench early. The bench wasn't developed when they were beating the snot out of some of those teams. So I'm not putting it totally on the players. It's up to the staff to develop the bench and develop confidence in them. But those guys, by the time you got to post-Saunders injury, it's like, my goodness, they didn't have any confidence. It's like when I was first doing the show in the early years with DJ, and he kept telling me I sucked.
Yeah. Well, he still tells me that all the time. But I'm glad you graduated out of that at least.
Well, hey, I will say with him now, he fills an important role in the show as a role player, and I value his contribution.
He's the Jake Whalen of the morning show. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, he can hit a shot now and then, but get out of the way.
Get out of the way. Rob Wright's got to get to the rim. Hey, that's the thing. By the way, congratulations. I don't know if today is the day, but we're close to the 24th anniversary of DJ and PK.
It was last week, and
last week.
I was talking. Yeah, it was April 8th, and
Okay.
I was talking to Tim Lacombe for other reasons that you may suspect. And I was telling him about how long we've been doing the show. And I said, actually, I think it's today. Now, because he was talking about, he was listening in the beginning. And we both of us forgot about it. 24, 20, 25, 30, that type of thing. 24 isn't near as a big deal. But I'm telling you guys, 25 next April, yeah, I expect a blowout.
Oh, absolutely. What is 25? Is that silver? What is 25?
I was thinking Showgirls.
Okay, well that works. Yeah. We'll get the girl from Saved by the Bell over here, and off we go.
Oh, Scotty, I'd sign a lifetime contract if you did that.
I'm sure KSL is just lining up for that one. No. Let's go. Absolutely. Hey, Mammoth make the playoffs just to have some meaningful games in the state of Utah in April to get that place rocking. I was there last night. Had my wife and my son and his buddy, and that place was electric. I can't imagine what it's going to be like here in the next couple of weeks when whoever they're up against in the playoffs, because this place they've been starved for a little meaningful playoff competition come April and May, and they're going to get it.
Well, I'm a postseason junkie. The NBA takes a hit on its regular season. Well, the good news is that's over. And we saw last night 2 pretty good games in the play-in. When guys are playing and they're balling out, well, we're going to see that obviously in hockey. And hockey, arguably, is the best postseason that we have in the spring because of the nature of the puck racing up and down that ice. And things can change dramatically. If you're not paying attention the entire time, you could miss 2 or 3 goals in a blink of an eye, literally. And I've been telling Mike Folta, the radio guy we have on Tuesdays, I've been saying, I've been listening to Bill Armstrong come on your show, and they're talking about, and the players, how they love being here, and it's exciting with the crowd. And I keep saying, guys, you haven't seen anything yet because this town rallies to big events as well as any town, and the weather's going to be good most likely. Being out on that plaza is really going to be something. We've all done it for Jazz basketball. And when you walk in the arena when it's postseason, literally the first step inside the arena, you can tell the difference between postseason in October to the middle of April. And I believe we'll absolutely see that with the Mammoth. And then these guys talk, right? They talk amongst themselves in the league. And the word is already getting out. Hey, what they're building down at Southtown is really incredible and all that. They'll take care of you. They'll pamper you. You'll have everything you need. It's a great organization, or as Bill Armstrong says, an organization. And then the word will get out. And plus the fans will be going berserk. Yeah, I think for the Jazz, too, I think we're now, both teams, it's the same owner, obviously, we're in for something that's going to be a good ride, if not a great ride, for both teams going forward the next few years.
PK, you're the best. Thanks for joining us. I know Lloyd got a hold of you yesterday morning, and you had about 36-hour notice to come on the show. So I certainly appreciate you getting on the schedule and making it work for you.
It wasn't quite that way, and I'm not really a guy who looks at my phone that much. But fortunately, about 20 minutes ago, I looked at it and saw the text. And well, it's all good. It's fine. Anytime.
I love it, man. You're the best. Thanks.
All right. See you guys.
There he is, the great Patrick Kinahan, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
You're locked on to Scotty G and Friends on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. All right, so throughout the last couple days, we've revisited some of the conversations from Jazz Locker Room Cleanout. On Monday, you heard from Will Hardy. You heard from Austin Ainge. Yesterday, you heard from Larry Markkinen. Keyonte George, who made that huge jump from year 2 to year 3. Here's his final media availability of the season as I know a lot of people are fired up about what he can bring to the table, and for good reason. If he made that jump from year 2 to year 3, what's the ceiling for year number 4 when then all the attention comes on the Jazz in terms of winning? There's no sitting back and waiting and seeing what's going to happen. No, it's like, all right, it's go time. It's time to win games. It's time to get yourself in a situation where you're going to challenge for playoffs positioning. So Keyonte George, is he ready for that next jump to lead a playoff team? Here is the young point guard with the media.
Turn the page the most this season?
I would probably say, I'll probably say mentally, obviously. I talk about it all the time working with Dr. Craig, and I think just the mental aspect, of my game has taken, the physical part to a whole nother level. So I just think, while I was out there this year, having mental notes, proactive self-talk, just things like that, just to keep me in the game. There are times where maybe early in my career, it's still early, but, 2 years ago or a year ago, I may, lose myself throughout the game, even times this year. But I think every year, those certain little moments have, they've lessened. So I think for me, I think I took a big time jump as far as, my mental.
Are your expectations, do you think that your expectations are going to be greater, that you're going to have more pressure, you're going to put more pressure on yourself next season?
I think, just to speak on expectations, most of my expectations are with the team. I know what I'm capable of. I know what Lowry, Wall, everybody from top to bottom, everybody knows what they're capable of. So I think my expectations now is, I expect for us to have, good camaraderie. I expect for us to, come in with a common goal every single day. So that's really just what I expect. I expect every day to honestly be fun. Things have went the way they went, the past couple of years, but I think for us now as a group, and especially with the changes that we've made, I think now we all have not a fresher breath air, but almost a breath of fresh air, but it's almost like, like I said, we just all have a common goal, so it'll be fun.
Do you think that this roster can make the playoffs?
For sure. It's no doubts about it, in my mind. When you look, on paper, we look phenomenal. We're big, have length, can shoot it, can get to the rim. We got multiple defensive guys that can protect the paint, protect the perimeter. When you look at us, we got, all the tools. So that's why I said earlier, I just, expect us to have, great team camaraderie. And like I said, as long as we have a common goal, everybody else will hit their individual goals or, whatever they want to achieve.
You've really grown as a leader throughout these 3 seasons now. At the beginning of the season, we talked about you hosting the guys back in Dallas. But what do you think has been the biggest change in taking on that leadership role and responsibility?
I'll probably say it's just every day. When there's times where, you feel like everybody has those days where they don't feel like, coming in or they got to push through, certain aches and pains. So I think for me, it was just about every day coming in, working, staying true to my habits. And, I think the group, whenever there's a leader of a group, you kind of look at that guy and you kind of say, like, every day he's doing the same thing over and over again, not getting bored, with the simple stuff. So I think for me, it was just, I came in every day understanding, what got me to the point where I am now and kind of just fell back on those things. And, when guys are, leaving the facility and, I may stay back and shoot, it kind of gives them the confidence when we get in between those lines for the 48. They know that I put the work in. So I think to answer your question, it's just about me kind of being almost like this, not getting too high, too low, just trying to, go day by day, understanding just trying to win every single day, and then the days start to stack up.
Where's your game at defensively?
I would just say just holding my ground. Our backline defense is, phenomenal. So, the confidence up top, keeping pressure the ball. I can, try to, speed them up a little bit, knowing that, okay, they get to the in-between game. I know I got guys behind me, but, it's the same thing as, when I was playing, with Walker at first. I mean, I got confidence up top, but, if you beat me down the slot or down the middle, I mean, I know I got Walker at the rim, and, I'll veer off, take care of his guy, and, we just rotate. So, I think for me, next year it's just going to be all about personnel, knowing the guy, his tendencies in front of me, and that'll help me a lot.
Kevin Love has talked about your relationship and your bond. There's a quick exchange that you guys have before tip. Can you walk us through that moment and just what it's been like having him on the team?
Yeah, I mean, K-Love's been, around, my GOAT. So, I mean, it's been a pleasure just to ask him so many questions. And like I said before, I think I'm just really interested in the mental part of the game. So him coming around, he spoke out about that a lot. It was good to have, some side conversations after the games or after practice or on the plane. But yeah, I mean, K-Love, he's big time for me. He empowers me, every single day. He sits, right next to me, at the arena. So if I feel like something's not going my way, at halftime, he may, bring me back, to life. So, that's the type of vet that, I love to have around. And I can also, I can speak for the group too. He's just brings, energy to the group every single day. One thing about K-Love, I feel like I just, never see him have a bad day. Like, he always going to joke. He always going to do his little thing, post on Instagram, stuff like that. So, even if, things are going bad for the team, he always finds a way to, bring us together as one.
It's going to probably be a higher level of scrutiny on this team. What do you think that's going to be like?
Yeah, I think it comes down to, like I said, our camaraderie. And then once it comes to, the dialogue, in between the lines, and there's going to be days where we watch, film for the whole day, and, we got to kind of be honest, with ourselves and be able to take, constructive criticism. Since I've been here, there's been times like that, but, the direction that we want to go to has to be every day, starting in the summer, having dialogue with everybody, and, then we get back and report in a couple weeks before camp and then camp. And so I think, it's going to be a high level of all that. There's going to be some days where we're getting after each other, but I think that's what good teams do. When you can battle against one another, but then, like I said, have a common goal when you go in between the lines. There's no hard feelings. Nobody's in their, like I said, nobody's in their feelings. Like I said, when you have a common goal, you kind of just wash everything out, and, like I said, it's like a brotherhood. So.
Do you think that you're going to see a different side of Will?
Yeah, Will's already a maniac, so he's gonna have his moments, but I know Will, I know he wants the best for us, so whatever that looks like from Will, I know it'll be a lot of screaming and yelling, but it's gonna make us great, down the line.
Does it surprise you that Nurk said that that this was the first year that he doesn't think that a coach said a bad word to him?
Never mind. I'm not going to say Nurk's lying or he's not. I know what Nurk says to me, though. That's crazy.
Cool. Yeah, you've talked about the fans and their support.
Yeah.
What excites you most about next season when you think about these fans?
Yeah, obviously it's a new era for us, but, a big, basketball fan. So when you go back to, the Utah teams that were winning and, you see how the fans act, seeing back then when they had them orange jerseys, everybody had white and orange in the stands. I just can't wait for that. Obviously, they have energy every single game for us, but now, we get high, when we get rolling, I can only imagine what the city is going to be.
As you're kind of envisioning those things, would not making it to the postseason next year be a disappointment?
I wouldn't say disappointment. Obviously, our expectation is to get to the postseason, and we have a couple people on our team that have got there. So I wouldn't say a disappointment, but I think it would be a disservice to ourselves, just knowing the type of talent that we have, and we have people on the team that know what it takes to get to the postseason, and like you said, with the dialogue going around through the team, and I mean, Will and his staff and our staff, like they all know what it takes. They've all been around great players, so I wouldn't say disappointment, but I think we'll be doing ourselves a disservice if we didn't come in every day working hard and, like I said, wanting more than everybody around us. So, I mean, we're young, we're hungry, so anything can happen, but that's the goal and more.
Great, thank you.
And more. There you go. Keyonte George, great conversation with him in the media, setting the scene and the standard for next season. All right, we are live here at Cal Ranch in Spanish Fork. Now, it is Bar W Beef. We want you to come by and check out some of the best beef. If you've been thinking, you know what, I need to get to Nephi, I need to go to barwbeef.com and try this out, but you haven't done it yet, just come on by here to Spanish Fork, the Cal Ranch store here in Spanish Fork. It's a pop-up location. Everything that's available in Nephi, as of right now, is available here. Now, will it be in 3 hours? I don't know. But if you come down right now, I can guarantee you the ribeyes, the ground beef, all the packages that they have available, they will be ready to go for you right now. So stop by, get it while the supply's here. It's Bar W Beef, a pop-up location in Spanish Fork at the Cal Ranch store. This is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Breaking down the teams you're passionate about. This is Scotty G and Friends on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. All right, let's give away some tickets. Caller number 12 right now, 801-575-ZONE. That's 801-575-ZONE. You'll score a pair of tickets to see Brett Floyd, the Pink Floyd tribute band, coming to the Maverick Center on June 6th. All right, what you may have missed right here on the Zone. I was at the game last night, and we'll chat with Cole Bagley coming up here in about 10 minutes from right now, our NHL and Mammoth insider. But last night, it was an interesting game. And, Lloyd, I know you were watching that game as well. But that first period, it really felt like, obviously, Utah was the better team. And for the most part, it felt like Utah was the better team in their game against Winnipeg last night. And but for the majority of the game, it kind of felt like it was just a one-goal game, 2-1. And then early in the third period, bam, Utah jumps out 4-1. It's like, okay, order's been restored. It's fine. And then you give up a sloppy goal. And then you then you have the penalty. So Winnipeg's on a power play. They score another goal. And just like that, it's 4-3 with about 5.5 minutes left in that game. And you're thinking, are they really going to blow this game to Winnipeg? Is this game going to go into OT? And you may only come out of this thing with 1 point instead of 2? And yet, Utah takes advantage. They scored the goal to give them the two-goal advantage, and then later a shorthanded goal. I mean, not a shorthanded goal, an empty netter, and Utah ends up getting the victory by the count of 5-3. So Utah improves and now lock in that number one wild card spot. And now the question is, who are they going to play? Is it going to be Vegas? You kind of hope so, that it'll be Vegas. I think, Lloyd, that's where you're still at, right? Because that's where I'm at. Give us the Golden Knights.
Oh, I'd take the Golden Knights. Yeah, the Oilers still make me super nervous, but the Golden Knights, I feel like that's a chance to really win a series.
Yes, I agree, and I want this team going deep. It would be great. Obviously, just getting to the playoffs is a monumental occasion for this team, a milestone in the early years. To be able to do what they're doing in year number 2 here in Salt Lake City is just phenomenal. And I know this isn't an expansion team. When Ryan Smith bought this team and moved them to Utah, this was a team that already had its traditions. They already had its roster in place. They had its coaching staff, its general manager. So all the infrastructure was certainly in place, and they were already, well along the path of the rebuild. But to, in year number 2, take this thing to the playoffs and comfortably get them into the playoffs with the number 1 wild card spot, huge accomplishment. That being said, let's get greedy. I want a first round victory. I want to see this team make some noise in the playoffs. And last night, and by the way, props to SEG and the Mammoth organization, because the game presentation is just phenomenal. And I say that after every game I go to, but I wasn't there covering the game, Lloyd. I was there just with my wife, my son. He brought a buddy with him, and so we're just sitting there and just enjoying the atmosphere.
You were covering it. That's covering. If you're there, that's covering, man.
I don't know. I was just there eating my popcorn, having my my nachos and my Coke Zero, and just sitting back and enjoying the game. And my kid and his buddy were having the time of their life. It is, by the way, you cannot find a better environment for a couple of 15-year-old dudes. I mean, they are living life. They're seeing some nasty action out on the ice. They're seeing dudes just knock each other senseless. They're hearing a lot of music. There's a lot of giveaways. There's a lot of cool things going on. And, I mean,
Did they chug a soda? Did they chug a soda on the celly cam?
They didn't get on the celly cam, but they had their sodas ready to go.
They partook. That's fun. It's cool. You know what? My kids did the same thing. They had a drink and they were trying to get on the celly cam with a drink by chugging it.
Hey, can we shout out our guy Stevenson Sylvester for making the celly cam?
Oh, heck yeah! By the way, he said he was going to. And I was like, oh,
yeah.
Really? Are you? Sure enough, he got on, sent the video as proof, and Sly, he got on that celly cam. That was awesome.
And he did work on that celly cam.
Yeah,
too.
he did. He put his buddy to shame.
Oh yeah. Oh, there's no doubt. Like that dude, and that's the competitor in Sly. You can take Sly off of the football field, but that you're still going to have that ultimate competitor. And so when he's going toe to toe, chugging a beverage, Sly's going to win. Sly's always going to win that one.
By the way,
right.
Real quick, we talking about who you'd like to see with the Mammoth, the Oilers or Vegas or whatever in that first round. I'll tell you what, I mean, it's never been close with Vegas. Just looking at the three games that they against the Mammoth and Vegas, in the first game, I think they lost to Vegas 4-1. Then the Mammoth beat them two times, once 5-1 and the other one 4-0. So all three games were blowouts.
Wow.
Nothing close. So I don't know what that means, but they do have the series lead, the season lead in the series, in the regular season. So there's just no close games in that matchup. So I don't know. I don't know what that means.
Oh, man. I got people beating me up on Twitter because there was an unfortunate typo on my tweet about Bar W beef.
And I didn't notice it because I retweeted you.
Are you seeing it now?
Oh, hold on. I got to see. Hold on.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not great. I don't know who's got the nickname the Freezer these days, but that's not great. I'm just waiting for Lloyd to find it because there's going to be a gasp here in about 3, 2, and
Scotty. 1. Oh, what are we doing here?
That's my bad. That goes back to the whole deal thing. Maybe that's just how Anyway, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Believe it or not, this guy actually has friends.
Nice.
This is Scotty G and Friends on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Scott Gerard with you. We're down here at Spanish Fork. Bar WB pop-up location. All kinds of great savings on the beef right now. And if you have not tried Bar WB, first off, shame on you. Second of all, you can get that rectified really quickly. You stop by here at the Cal Ranch store in Spanish Fork, this pop-up location. I want people to try this sampler pack because you're going to try everything that Bar W can really kind of showcase. You got the ground beef, 4 pounds of ground beef. You got a chuck roast of about 4 pounds. You got 2 sirloin steaks, and they'll also throw in 2 ribeye or 2 New York strips. You get all of that for $110. Fill up that freezer. Let's get you ready to go for the summer. All right, joining us now, Cole Bagley, NHL and Utah Mammoth insider for KSLSports.com. Cole, first off, it was a fun atmosphere last night, but boy, there were some moments where it looked like Utah was far and away the better team, but boy, they let Winnipeg hang in there probably far too long in that game.
the entertainment factor, right? They had to make it a little bit interesting. Yeah, you got to keep the fans a little bit engaged and make them a little bit nervous. No, I mean, you're spot on. There was no reason for Utah not to win that game with the number of players that were sidelined for Winnipeg, the fact that Connor Hellebuck wasn't between the pipes, and for the majority of the contest, Utah looked like the better team, but what they learned and what's going to be an important lesson as they step into the playoffs is one mistake can totally flip the momentum in a game, and that happened last night against the Jets. Is Utah took kind of a no nonsense type of penalty that set them back. It gave the Jets an opportunity. They scored, and then another mistake where Mackenzie Weegar he kind of blew a tire near the blue line, and the Jets were right there to scoop up the puck and score on the breakaway. So and that's just kind of what a lot of the guys have been talking to me about over the last week or so. Is you get into the playoffs and it's one play that can not only change a game, but it can change a series. So an important lesson, but at the end of the day, they got it done. They locked up the top wild card spot, and they now wait to see who's going to win the Pacific Division. So they'll face that team in the first round.
So if you had to pick a team that you want to see in the first round, who would that be?
Well, as of right now, it's either Vegas or Edmonton, and I definitely would go with Vegas. Not that it's necessarily the lesser of two evils. I mean, it's going to be tough no matter what. But, if you just look at the history that Utah has with those two teams, I think they're 3-3 or maybe 4-3 against the Vegas Golden Knights in the games that they've played through the first 2 years in their existence, with a positive goal differential. And when you look at Edmonton, and they've only beat Edmonton once out of 6 meetings, and the goal differential is plus 15 in favor of the Edmonton Oilers. And I know that fans are saying, well, they just beat Edmonton, and they're able to go toe-to-toe with them. Yeah, but that was an Edmonton team that was missing 2 of their best players, and Leon Draisaitl, who is probably a top 5 player in the entire world as of right now. And it took Utah overtime and a goal in overtime to beat the Oilers. So I am never going to bet against Connor McDavid in the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. And if Utah wants a chance to advance to the second round, I think that Vegas is the better opportunity. Not to say that I expect them to necessarily win that series, but it is a series that they could win. So hopefully we can get things wrapped up and decided tonight. If Vegas is able to get just a point against Seattle tonight, then that will decide that they'll clinch the top of the Pacific, and we'll have our series decided.
So kind of lay out, I know that everything starts a little differently, but generally, when do you think things are going to kick off, and your home road schedules? Is it 2-2, 1-1-1, or how's the format in the first round for those that don't know?
Yeah, it's similar to the NBA. So you go 2-2, 1-1-1. And we should know here pretty quickly. To my understanding, the playoffs are going to start really fast. I mean, tomorrow is the last day of the regular season, and then I believe that the playoffs are set to begin on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. Now, we won't know which day exactly the Mammoth are going to be playing on yet, but it's going to be quick. It's a quick turnaround. Tomorrow's game has no impact on the standings whatsoever for either team. Utah locked up the top wild card spot. Now they're just waiting to see who they're going to play. So I would expect, not necessarily a bunch of people to sit out tomorrow, but maybe a little bit less of an effort. Keep the guys warm. Maybe we'll see some of the younger guys get more of an opportunity, more minutes, more shifts, stuff like that. But it's going to be a quick turnaround, and Utah will either be headed to Las Vegas or Edmonton here in the next few days. I would anticipate they probably would head out on Friday just to get out there and get settled, and then we jump into games right away. It's 2 on the road and then 2 at home, and then if more games are needed, 1-1-1. So we'll see. Yeah. It's going to be really, really exciting.
Well, and there's no doubt that people are fired up for some meaningful games, whether football, hockey, or whatever. Basketball, hockey in the spring. We're used to seeing playoffs, and it's been 4 or 5 years. So the fact that you get that playoff-like atmosphere back in that building, when you look at the playoffs in the NBA, we're just used to officials swallowing their whistle a little bit more in NBA postseason than the regular season. Is that the same with the NHL?
Yeah, I think so. The game becomes more physical, and not just like by a small margin. I mean, everything is tenfold. There's going to be way more physicality. There's going to be way more body checks. There's going to be, a lot more jockeying for the puck and battling in the corners. And, I was talking to Vitek Vanacek yesterday, and I just kind of started to pick some of the guys' brains, right? I mean, this is my first time covering playoff hockey, at this level. And so I kind of was asking, how is the game the same, but how does it change? And, when I talked to Vanacek, he said that there are way more bodies in front of the net than there usually are. It's almost like there's twice as many skaters out on the ice. That's how much, more physical and more locked in and aggressive these teams are playing. So, yeah, I would say that they definitely let the guys play a little bit more. But, if you cause an infraction and it's pretty obvious, then you're going to go sit in the penalty box for a couple minutes.
When you look at the power play, I think Utah had 2 goals last night off of the power play. That seemingly has gotten better. I know we've talked about that in the past, but what do you really attribute the improvement of that play to?
Yeah, we were able to talk to Nick Schmaltz about that last night after the game. And, it's, for most of the year, Utah was like the first or second worst power play in the entire league. And it was kind of a head-scratcher because they have such a talented unit. When you look at the 5 players that they're putting on the ice, you've got Clayton Keller, you've got Nick Schmaltz, Mikhail Sergachev, Dylan Gunther, Logan Cooley. So, a really talented, unit top to bottom with all sorts of different, talents and abilities, skill sets, lots of speed, lots of finesse, goal scoring and, facilitating. It's a very good unit. But their issue is that they just weren't shooting enough pucks, and they played very perimeter-style hockey where, they would just kind of work it from, side to side. They would feed Mikhail Sergachev at the point, and then he would try to work it over to Dylan Gunther or Clayton Keller. And, teams, that's just predictable, and teams started to kind of figure that out. And so they would just, crowd the middle of the ice, and they would force Utah to shoot, and they'd make sure that their goaltender could see the puck, and that just is kind of why they struggled. But, Utah has since changed things, and that's what Schmaltz talked about, is they're putting a lot more shots on net. And that was obvious last night. Mikhail Sergachev was looking for his shot from deep constantly, and that's how Nick Schmaltz actually scored his first goal on the power play is, instead of working it over to Dylan Gunther for a one-timer, Mikhail kind of surveyed, saw that there were a lot of bodies in front, threw a really, well-placed shot up high that he knew was probably going to bounce off of a body, or if the goaltender was going to stop it, it was going to produce a rebound. And that's exactly what happened, and Schmaltz was able to, to put it in the back of the net. So for Utah, it's funny, right? I mean, there are these basics that go all the way back to when you're playing youth hockey of, if you want to score goals, go to the net. And if you want to, create opportunities, put pucks on net. And, Utah started to do that, and I think that's what's helped them to be so successful.
It's funny because when we talk to Bill Armstrong every week and we ask him questions about, from an X's and O's standpoint, what do you have to do to improve your power play? What do you have to do? And we're expecting some long, crazy, drawn-out answer in terms of, well, we got to do this and this and this. He's like, no, just exactly what you said. We got to put pucks on net. We just got to take some shots. And it's like, is it sometimes we make things a little bit more complicated than they need to be because you just got to hoist up shots, and more often than not, that seems to be working for this team right now.
Yeah, it is. And, like I talked about earlier, I mean, hockey is interesting because it is a very complex sport. I mean, as a lot of people here in Utah have started to follow it and to fall in love with it and notice it, there are a lot of intricacies, right? I mean, what's icing and what's offside and, what constitutes a penalty. But when you boil it down, when you break it down, hockey, finding success in hockey is the same as it was in youth hockey, as it is at the NHL. Now, obviously, there's a lot more speed and skill involved. But, for these guys, it's just all about playing their game. And oftentimes the team that is able to, assert themselves in the offensive zone and thrive on the forecheck and trap the defense and move the puck and get pucks on net, get bodies in front. That's how you win hockey games, and as much as there is a lot of individual brilliance and speed and skill when you look at guys like Connor McDavid and, Nathan McKinnon and Leon Draisaitl and even guys on the Mammoth, at the end of the day, it's very much a team sport, and it's a pretty simplified team sport. But it's about who can play that game in its most natural and truest form, and that's as a lot of the guys would say lately, that's just baseball.
If there's something that makes you nervous about the Mammoth going into postseason, what would it be?
Oh, that's a good question. Honestly, I think maybe a two-part question, a two-part answer. I think the first one is this is still a young team, right? This is a team that they're experiencing growing pains. Now, they're different growing pains than they experienced 5 years ago, that they experienced 3 years ago, that they experienced last season. But, the key for this team is discovering how to play effective, impactful hockey that, goes along with their skill set and their brand as often as possible. When Utah has been successful, when they've won hockey games on a consistent basis, when they went on that 5-game winning streak to lock up a playoff spot, that was, in part due to the fact that they were able to weather adversity, that they were able to, play their style for, as many minutes throughout, 3 periods of hockey as often as possible. But when they've run into struggles, when they've had trouble like they did, when they lost the previous 2 games before winning last night, it was because they didn't play their style of hockey. They got lazy. They got lazy. They kind of towed the line. They thought that they could get away with certain things. And I think for a lot of teams, what separates the elite teams from the good teams from the poor teams is their ability to have the energy and the urgency for as many games as possible. That's what makes, the Colorado Avalanche and the Dallas Stars so dangerous, is they have figured out how to play their brand of hockey over 82 games, as many nights and as many minutes as possible, whereas Utah, they're young, right? They're inexperienced. A lot of these guys Dylan Gunther's only played 2 full seasons in the National Hockey League. Logan Cooley is only in his 3rd full year. And there's a handful of other guys that are just like that. So for Utah, I think, the biggest thing is, can they go into a 7-game series and play their game for most of those contests? If so, I'm not promising that they're going to win in the first round, but I think they'll make some noise. I think they'll push some teams, and they'll have an opportunity, depending on who they draw, to potentially, even win, to come out on top. And then I know that was kind of a long first part of the answer. The second, well, I'll make this a little bit shorter. The second part I would say is goaltending. Not that Karel Vejmelka is bad by any means, but he just hasn't been as good this year as he was last season. His save percentage is down about 7 or 8% total, which makes a big difference. And then there's just it's obvious that there's just not a lot of belief in Vitek Vanacek, and not that you necessarily need your backup, overly often in the playoffs. You're going to rely on your starter, but it helps, right? If there's confidence in both guys, if one guy has an off night, you can throw them in there, and they can make a big difference. So, long story short, I think maturity is going to be the most, the biggest thing for Utah, and then second would be, how good is their goaltending? How good is Karel Vejmelka going to be in the playoffs?
Well, you mentioned the drop he's had a little bit in his save percentage. I just saw this story where overall as a league, the save percentage has dropped below 90%. It's at 89.6. That's the lowest since 1994 for a regular season, if that number holds. Are you surprised by that number, and what do you attribute that to? No,
I'm not. I think it's kind of the game leveling itself out. I mean, for a long time, goaltenders just continued to get better and better and better, and save percentages were just going up and up and up. But then, you've seen kind of a reverse of that, and I think a lot of it has to do with just how much faster the game is, how much teams are prioritizing speed. When you look at the best players in the National Hockey League, it's guys that are the fastest players in the National Hockey League. Connor McDavid and Nathan McKinnon and Draisaitl, and even you look at the Mammoth. I mean, who is likely the most best player on this team, or at least has the most potential? It's Logan Cooley, because he not only has the finesse and incredible hands and incredible puck handling, but he has the speed, right? And that has just made goaltenders' jobs a lot harder. And I think you're starting to see a transition a little bit defensively. Who are the best defensemen in the National Hockey League? It's guys like Cale Makar, and it's Quinn Hughes, and it's Zach Werenski. These are guys that have so much speed on the blue line, and they're jumping in offensively. I mean, if you look back at the Olympics, Quinn Hughes helped send the United States to the gold medal game against Canada by scoring an overtime winner against Sweden. A goal that he just took, he waved off the bench. He was actually supposed to go for a change. He waves him off. He says, "Coach, I've got this one." He dangles through the offensive zone. He puts in, he snipes the goaltender, and all of a sudden United States is playing for a gold medal. So I just think that speed is at such a premium in the National Hockey League, and it's changing the way that the game is played, and it's making it a lot tougher for goaltenders to make stops.
So, you had the late 90s, early 2000s when, you had the kind of essentially that dead puck era where hooking and holding and pretty much anything went. And the league said, okay, well, let's adjust this a little bit. We need to get our scoring up. And that certainly has gone up. Is the league, is that because I always know the NFL is very cognizant of that. They want offense to be there because that draws fans, but you also don't want it to turn it into the arena league. So they're always trying to balance the rules on offense versus defense, keep scoring up, but don't make it ridiculous. I think the NBA is dealing with some regular season issues where the scoring's getting a little out of control, and I think they may be trying to reel things back a little bit. Is that something that the NHL continually kind of works on and tweaks?
That's a good question. And to be honest, I'm not entirely certain at this point. But if you were to ask me my opinion, I don't know that hockey has ever been at a better place than it is right now. I don't know if the league has ever been this popular. If the game has ever been growing, to this extent. I mean, they just hit a milestone in terms of youth players, involved in USA Hockey throughout the entire country, and just with the excitement of the United States winning their first gold in 50, more than 50 years, and it just feels like right now the league is in a good place. Superstars are playing the game at just a very enticing and intriguing level. Fans are falling in love all over the place. There's talks of even more expansion. How things have gone here in Utah, where you came to maybe a non-traditional market, and this state and this community has just completely taken this thing and run with it. I think hockey's in a good spot, and I mean, if we get into the playoffs here and teams are, if it's a 8-7 score every single night, then maybe the league needs to take a look at it. But I think right now it's in a good place.
Yeah, no doubt. Cole, we appreciate your time. It was good chatting with you yesterday. Fun game last night, and let's keep this thing rolling in the playoffs.
All right, thanks.
There he is, Cole Bagley, hockey and NHL Mammoth insider right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Yeah, you want
great
Vegas.
Atmosphere last night.
What's that? You want Vegas.
Oh, yeah.
You definitely want Vegas. I was looking at the numbers, and, Utah's 1-5 against Edmonton, and negative 16 in the goal differential, whereas against Vegas, they're 3-3, and they're +7 in the goal differential. So, I think you want Vegas.
I really think in terms of where the league, and I don't know I'm not around a lot of hockey old school guys, and so I don't know, you hear baseball guys, some of these old school baseball dudes are like, I love a good 1-0 game, or a 0-0 going into the 10th, a pitcher's duel, and that doesn't move the meter with the new generation. I will say, these last few games for the Mammoth, when you're seeing 4, 5, 6 goals a game, you're seeing a 6-5 game or a 4-3 game, it's awesome.
Yeah, give me that.
I love it.
Give me that.
I think
that's what
I mean, frankly, I kind of like it where it's at. Now, look, I don't have a lot of history as a long-term fan, but in terms of the scoring, I think you're seeing enough to keep people on the edge of their seats. I think you're seeing enough great stops as well from your goaltenders. So I think it's at a good balance. Frankly, I could not enjoy the game any more than it is right now, and I have loved every minute of it. Getting to know this game and really diving down deep with it. So
plus, a shutout in hockey feels like it's a little easier than let's say a shutout in baseball, like pitching shutout.
Yeah.
I don't mind seeing a shutout in baseball because you're seeing something historical a little bit more. But I do prefer seeing some runs, some offense.
So it is really, really incredible atmosphere. And again, I want to give a shout out to the game presentation crew because it was so good last night. It was just an absolute blast. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
It's time to saddle up and talk about the winners and the losers. This is the good, the bad, and the ugly. Now, here's the good.
It is the good, it is the bad, it is the ugly right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. All right, let's get to it, Lloyd. It is the good, and I think everybody out there has got a big smile on their face with the thought that the LIV Tour might come to a crashing halt. Saudi Arabia's wealth fund is, according to the Financial Times, right there on the verge of cutting funding for LIV. If that happens, that thing is toast, because that is the only thing keeping it afloat. Now, we talked about, hey, look, the Saudis have unlimited money. They can go out there and spend as much as they want. Apparently, even they have a point where it's like, hey, you know what, we're losing too much money on this. This is getting out of hand.
And it's not a good product either. It's a bad product.
It's a bad product. There's no TV ratings. John Rahm's really the last signature golfer that was signed. And if you go on the LIV, sure, you're cashing big checks, but that's where good quality golf goes to die. I mean, I can't even begin to tell you who some of the, who's doing well, who's doing poorly, because nobody cares. Nobody watches it. And so if this happens, and we might hear an announcement as soon as Thursday as to the future of this, but if the Saudis say, nah, we're done, we're going to pull our funding, then it's done. Sergio Garcia, just off of that Masters meltdown. Hey, if you thought he was swinging clubs around at coolers before, imagine what he's going to do when he finds out those LIV checks stop coming.
You know what? But Scotty, there's part of me, the vindictive side of me, that wants the PGA just to be like, yeah, you know what? We're good. You don't need to go ahead and go to your local muni and play golf or whatever club you're a part of. And, we got other guys. We got up-and-comers. Don't worry about it.
You want to be... Yeah, the European Tour would be happy to have you.
Yeah,
just
you turned your back on us, and I get why they did. Money, that was a lot of money. Part of me understands why they did. It's like, but you know what? I think we all thought it's like, man, that's awesome and all, but it's like, really, there's something doesn't feel right. And I don't think the product's going to be good, and I don't see how this outlasts, because PGA still has the majors and all, a lot of tournaments that way in that vein, and it's just. I didn't know how LIV was ever going to work out. I thought it would probably end up like this.
Yes. I mean, this is like old school USFL or XFL. These leagues, it never works. It just doesn't happen. And you can try and you can hope that something's going to come together, but it's just not. When you take on the PGA Tour, you take on the NFL, it's going to end badly for you. And look, if you're a member of the PGA Tour and you hung in there, you're going to get rewarded because, well, you've already been rewarded because, honestly, they've already increased the payouts. Like, the LIV shook things up to the point where there were some changes made to the PGA Tour that benefited these golfers in a big, big way. So they obviously are happy with what went on. And if it also means that the LIV Tour goes away, then everybody comes out a winner that just hung in there with the PGA. So there were changes. It became better for the golfers involved, and at the end of the day, the LIV Tour still crashes and burns. There's a reason why we put it on the good. There's a reason why Lloyd goes, hey, I've got your good. The LIV Tour might be going belly up, and that's got to put a big smile on a lot of people's faces. I know you got Brian and Bob out there. They've tried to be diplomatic about it, but you can tell that they were against this whole thing. Nobody wanted to cover it. Nobody wanted to be a part of it from a media standpoint, and apparently nobody ever wanted to watch it from a viewership standpoint. So
anytime we talked about it, it was something that was bad. It wasn't something good.
No.
There was never anything good that I recall even coming from it at all.
Nope. Not one bit. All right, there's your good. Let's get to the bad.
Now the bad.
Well, your drunk game of the night last night was certainly Miami up against Charlotte. Crazy game. You've got a game where it appears that Charlotte's in complete control. Ero hits a 3 and then steals the ball gets fouled on a three-point shot, makes 3 free throws, and just like that, it's 126-125. Charlotte looks like they're going to win this thing. The Heat look like they're going to win this thing, and then LaMelo Ball goes coast to coast, lays it up and in with just a couple seconds left, and it is Charlotte escaping with a 127-126 victory. But Eric Spoelstra certainly not happy with what happened in the second quarter. LaMelo Ball actually trips Bam Adebayo, and he ends up with a lower back injury, does not return in this game, and Spoelstra was red hot, saying that I'm not making an excuse. The Hornets played great. They played with those plays down the stretch, but here is Eric Spoelstra continuing on those thoughts after this game.
I don't think it's cute. I don't think it's funny. I think it's a stupid play. It's a dangerous play.
So, stupid. It's not cute. It's a dangerous play. Obviously, our best player was out. And again, he's like, I'm not making an excuse. Hornets played great, made the plays down the stretch, but it's a shame. You should be penalized for that. I don't think that belongs in the game. Tripping guys, shenanigans, and really felt like LaMelo Ball should have been thrown out of the game. And frankly, I don't necessarily disagree with him. In fact, LaMelo Ball, he frankly admits that it happened. Let's start with let's go back to Spoelstra. Here's him finishing up those comments about LaMelo.
See it, but I don't think it's cute. I don't think it's funny. I think it's a stupid play. It's a dangerous play. Obviously, our best player is out. I'm not making an excuse. The Hornets played great, and they made those plays down the stretch. We had our opportunities to win. That's a shame. He should be penalized for that. I don't think that belongs in the game. Tripping guys, shenanigans, and Curtis was there. It's his responsibility to see that. And if it's not his responsibility, then Zach's got to see it. If somebody has got to see that, and that he should have been thrown out of the game. For that. I don't know him from anyone. There's no place in the game for that. Obviously, it took Bam out of the game, but that did not deter us. If there's anything about our locker room, we just the guys just got into the competition, and like I said, we had our opportunities to win this game. It felt like we were going to win the game going down the stretch in regulation. Like I said. One stop out of those last 3 possessions would have sealed it.
Yeah, and again, remarkable comeback. The fact that you essentially scored 6 consecutive points to get yourself in a position to win that game and just couldn't make the defensive stop down the stretch to hold on and get the victory. LaMelo Ball was asked about it as well afterwards, and frankly doesn't necessarily shy away from the fact that it happened. He's more than happy to admit that the tripping did, in fact, take place, but gave some excuses as to why that happened.
I apologize on that one. I got hit in the head, didn't really know where I was, but I'm going to check on him and see if he's okay and everything.
LaMelo, it kind of looked like on film that you might have grabbed his leg. Did you intentionally grab his leg?
I haven't even seen. Like I said, I got hit in the head, didn't even know where I was, but yeah, just playing basketball. But like I said, sorry, and I'm going to check on him.
He's sorry. He's going to check on him, and he's pulling the CTE card. He said, essentially I got concussed, and, I got hit in the head, and I didn't know what was going on. So everybody's trying to pull the CTE.
Was there a concussion protocol that happened there?
Yeah, in fact, maybe he shouldn't have even been in the game because of that. Like, look, either you're tripping a guy and you get thrown out, or you got a concussion and you should be taken out of the game. So there you go. All right, the Utah Mammoth back in action coming up. They've one more game in the regular season. We'll give you a Mammoth update coming up here in just a few moments. And then coming up in the 2 o'clock hour, biggest story of the day, Rob Wright back at BYU. You'll hear from Mitch Harper coming up at 2:05. Mark Durrant will join us coming up at 2:30. This is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
You're locked on to Scotty G and Friends on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Remember the Zone and Beehive Mills honoring people that impact youth sports in our communities. Nominate the youth sports volunteer for the Beehive Mill Hero of the Week at KSLSports.com/contest. And listen every Thursday afternoon as we will announce a winner It's the Beehive Mills Hero of the Week. All right, Lloyd, big headline coming out of Vegas. You see this? Vegas are up for shopping that number 1 pick.
I don't believe you.
Let's dig into this a little bit.
Yeah, you're going to want to dig into that. Check your sources.
John Spytek, general manager of the Vegas Raiders, says we've gotten several phone calls. Teams know where they stand and know that we're willing to shop. Okay, that last part maybe not necessarily true. But he said the team has always been open-minded about trade offers. He mentioned that good ones can materialize on draft night if a team waits a few moments before making a selection. So,
hey, he'd be
go.
stupid not to listen. You always listen, but you don't do
saying, ship off Max Crosby, ship off that number 1 pick, and go settle in on some crazy 4'2", 40 wide receiver with no hands.
Hey, somebody wants to put a move on Max Crosby? Fine. Got to be good. Got to get something back for it. Maybe 2 first-round picks. Get those back.
All right. Are you glad Crosby's back, or do you wish that trade would have gone through?
Oh, I absolutely wanted that trade. Absolutely. Those first-round picks would have been awesome. But I will say he will come back motivated. And it hasn't happened yet. I still want him to take a pay cut. He still needs to take a pay cut. He should. If he's going to do as he preaches, if he's all about the team, then you take a pay cut.
I like how we're always easy to say, like, oh, you need to do this. Take less money. Take less.
Are you about winning or not?
It's my money, man. You go find better players. I'm getting
That's fine. He can do whatever he wants. But guess what? Then shut up about you're all about winning.
I don't think anybody actually really takes a pay cut. They just do the
fine.
shell game.
Whatever
they do
it
that
takes.
Weird little shell game.
That's fine.
Everybody thinks Mahomes is taking less money. No, he's not. He's just they're just restructuring the contract. So
I get it.
And so he needs to be doing that too, for sure.
Yeah, move it around. That's fine. Do whatever you need to do to add.
He's a selfish player. He'll get it. It's just what happens when you play for Vegas.
Okay.
That's who the kind of players they go after.
Right.
And pretty soon Mendoza's going to be the same.
Right, because Russell Wilson was just amazing.
No, Russell Wilson was not amazing. We can agree on that.
Okay.
I'm not going to stick up for Russ.
Well, the Broncos signed him.
Nix, on the other hand.
Broncos were all about it.
I know, and they whiffed badly.
Yeah.
Nope, can't argue that one bit. This is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Breaking down the teams you're passionate about. This is Scotty G and Friends on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Happy Wednesday. Week's nearly half over. Hey, a lot coming down the pipeline here over the next week or so here on the Zone, as we've got NHL hockey, playoff hockey that we'll be breaking down as soon as this regular season comes to an end. We'll kick off the playoffs. The Mammoth will most likely be either starting a playoff series at Edmonton or at Vegas. Whew. One of those is not like the other. Edmonton or Vegas, that's quite the end or right there. The Mammoth certainly punching their ticket last night with it already punched their ticket, but then clinched the number 1 wild card spot. So, again, most likely either playing Edmonton or Vegas to kick off the playoffs. Big story of the day, though, down in Provo, Rob Wright got into the transfer portal, flirted with Kentucky, and ultimately decided, you know what, I'm coming back to Provo. And I'm sure financial resources had something to do with it, but you can't tell me that Kentucky wasn't willing to pull up the Brinks truck as well. And BYU somehow able to hold on to the services of Rob Wright. Joining us now, he is our Cougar analyst and insider for KSLSports.com, Mitch Harper. Mitch, how are you?
Good, Scotty. Happy to be on.
So at what point did you feel like Rob Wright returning to BYU was a possibility?
The day that he went into the portal, because nice. BYU, had there was always a good relationship, and it wasn't a situation that he was leaving on bad terms or entering that portal with a fractured relationship with BYU. There was always that chance to circle things back because I think he does really believe in Kevin Young and this staff and developing him. But obviously listening to the opportunities that are out there, and clearly did that, and goes through the process with Kentucky and ends up coming back to BYU. So there was always that chance, but it really kicked into overdrive when also, too, you just looked at the landscape of the portal, and there were no point guards that were going into the portal that probably matched Rob Wright. And even though that you just saw a team in Michigan win the title with a lot of transfers, there were still pieces of retention. One of their starters in that starting five was a retention piece. So that still plays a role in being a really good team, and getting that retention with Rob Wright, I think, was important for BYU and exceeded any of the other point guards that were in the portal. And he was the best one. And as Kevin Young put it, they view him as the best point guard in college basketball. With that viewpoint from BYU staff, the alignment was there, and he runs it back at BYU.
Obviously, the fact that he's coming back, that's the best part of it. The fact that they got past Kentucky and Mark Pope, that's a little cherry on top, is it not?
It has to be, and I think that's where, because at the time 2 years ago this month, when Mark Pope left for BYU, or left for Kentucky, from BYU, the thought was, man, the BYU basketball program's gonna never have success again, potentially in the Big 12, maybe go to the bottom. And, Mark Pope's going to be a guy that can pick off, the state of Utah if he wants to, because it's Kentucky. And we're seeing it in college basketball. All these blue blood brands are struggling. Kentucky, Kansas in the Big 12, they're just not having the same impact or registering the same way that they once did with recruits anymore in this climate where everyone can pay and it's all legal. And so for BYU to do that with Mark Pope, it does probably add a cherry on top, I would imagine. And then also to get Colin Chandler in the same cycle, a guy that, he says he's returning home, even though home has never been BYU. He grew up a Utah fan. That's also another cherry on top for this BYU staff. So some wins for Kevin Young over the former BYU head coach this portal cycle, that's for sure.
So we'll circle back to Rob Wright and what he means to BYU, but I do think that as you build a team, you need to have a team in terms of, and I think BYU, the bench let them down a little bit last year. They were a little top heavy. They needed guys to make shots down the stretch, and they struggled with that. I think the Jake Whalen signing, I think when we talk about next year's BYU team, we're going to be midway through the year. And I think Jake Whalen's going to be a big story of what BYU basketball is about, because I think those are the kind of guys that you need to fill out a roster with. And I think he's going to come up big in 3 or 4 games and probably win you a couple games that maybe you wouldn't have otherwise.
Absolutely. And he's also a guy, too, that when he committed to BYU out of high school at Timpview High, I remember being at his signing day commitment announcement, and he even said at the time, it was a dream of his to play at BYU, Wallin. And he's got, his father played BYU football in the late 80s. His brother-in-law is Harvey Longy, a former BYU defensive end, Colby Pearson. So strong BYU ties. And I think that was something that was maybe missing for BYU. Beyond, maybe the on-court production when Richie Saunders went down, a guy that, as Kevin Young put it, the heart and soul of the locker room, and guys that just really kind of cared about BYU. I think AJ did a really good job of that. But, guys that are really passionate about playing for their home state, playing at BYU in front of family and friends, that's Jake Wallin, a Provo native, played at Timpview High School, first 2 years at Utah, then goes to Clemson. Now he's going to wrap it up at BYU. He could be a stretch 4 for this BYU team. He adds some size at 6'10", and they desperately need that, this BYU squad. So, yeah, I think that's a nice addition, and it's definitely one that's not going to maybe register national headlines like Rob Wright did today, but it's one that'll be an important aspect to this team because they do need some chemistry with this roster like they did in year one under Kevin Young, because this past year's team was solid and they just didn't have the chemistry because of all the injuries and the different iterations they had to go through. They're off to a nice start with building out this 2027 roster with the addition of Wallin today.
So when you look at this team at face value right now, obviously you lose a couple big pieces from last year's team, but you add some big pieces and you bring back Rob Wright. Just on the outside looking in, with the current makeup of this roster with still some more pieces yet to be added, how do you look at this team as opposed to last year's squad?
They got some questions still in the front court, and there's still a group that lacks much size. And that's where now going forward into the portal, it might be a little bit of a money ball situation where you got to find some value, maybe you go into the international waters to find some bigs to add to this roster, because that is an aspect that's missing. And they lost all three of their centers from this past year with Keba Keita, Bidu Ahmed, and then Xavier Staten. All three of those guys are gone, and so they need to really replenish that center spot. They've got Hadim Boop, who could play the 5. He did at stretches this past year. You go back to the Wisconsin game at the Delta Center. That was a really impressive performance. He started at the 5, played a lot for BYU in that spot, and it was a really fast-paced game. Honestly, one of the best performances BYU had this past year. So they could turn to Boop at that spot, but they need some more size. And that's where a big question for this team, I think, as far as building this thing out. But you like the shot-making ability with Rob Wright, who was a 41% three-point shooter, Colin Chandler, one of the best three-point shooters in the SEC, and Bruce Branch III, an elite catch-and-shoot, half-a-second decision-making type of player that Kevin Young loves to work with. You've got guys that can hit the three at a high clip, and Tyler Betsy, who comes in from Syracuse. He was a 40% three-point shooter as well. He could be a nice reserve off the bench for BYU if he can be a three-point, shot maker for the Cougars. So you like that aspect, but the size is still an area where you go, how realistic is it for this team to be at the top of the Big 12 and ultimately, make a deep run next March? So that's got to be an area of focus going forward the rest of the way in building out this roster.
I know with BYU being a private institution and a lot of teams aren't releasing this info anyway, but do you feel like, and again, you don't need to tell me a number, but do you feel like from a financial standpoint that BYU is about even where they were last year, or are they even probably going to exceed that number from last year?
Hard to say. I mean, honestly, I would expect that they're going to be pretty close to what it's been this year, because the money isn't slowing down. I think naively, and I thought that the money would slow down a bit with the rev share caps in place. That hasn't been the case at all, and it seems like there's more money being thrown around than ever before. So if you want to compete at the highest level of the high majors, and BYU clearly wants to do that, it's probably going to have to be in that same, area where you have to think at least $10 million to be, competitive at the high major level. So a lot of money is going to be thrown into this, but BYU is definitely competitive. But it's not just. I don't get the sense that it's just endless money for BYU. I think it's going to have to be with the front court potentially, barring some drastic change. There's been buzz about the UConn center, Ryba, trending towards USC. He was a guy that was linked to BYU, a 7-1 center from UConn. Outside of someone like that, you might have to go more developmental, maybe under the radar prospect, and kind of moneyball that thing to build out the depth in the front court. But they got their face of the program for next year, and their number one guy in Rob Wright. And then that number 2 is probably going to be Colin Chandler, and the rest of it, you kind of play by the numbers and what would be allocated in their designated budgets for what they're envisioning for this roster.
Do you feel as if Rob Wright's ready to be the face of this team? I mean, you go last year, it was AJ, it was Colin, and then Wright was certainly in the mix. But make no mistake, I mean, this is his team right now. It's
a big question, and that's where he's got to deliver, because in high school, his senior year in high school, it was the Cooper Flag show. It was Derek Queen and Asa Newell. And then at Baylor, it was VJ Edgecombe. And then this past year was AJ DeBonsa and Richie Saunders. Now it's his time. Really, for the first time since he was a junior in high school, he's going to be viewed as the number one guy. He has to deliver, and he's got to be able to make his teammates better. I do believe he's got the ability to be, a guy that can be a passing guard that can elevate players around him. But I think that he's been so connected to teams that have had, the 1, 2, the superstars around him, that he's kind of been that third wheel in many respects, or fourth wheel in some teams, like in high school. So that's going to be a huge challenge for him. But the thing is that Kevin Young does believe that he can be that guy, and he's going to have to be a superstar for BYU on both ends of the floor, and especially on the offensive side, but also in that locker room too. I think that will be a huge aspect to see his growth as a leader of the program, because for the first time since he was a junior in high school, he's going to go back-to-back years with the same program. And, you would like to think that kind of comfort, not a new scene, he's settled into this environment at BYU, that he can really hit the ground running and bring this roster and this locker room together. And with him coming back, you still have, Hadim Boop. You also have Nate Pickens, who was a guy that redshirted last year, but he was part of the program in that locker room, a UC Riverside transfer who, up until his injury in training camp, Kevin Young was pretty high on him. So you got some guys that are, returning from last year's team and now bringing in all together with Chandler and Waleem, the experience that they have from both serving missions and college basketball experience. There's a good mix of backgrounds and talent and skill sets in this locker room. And Rob Wright, though, has got to be the one that brings it all together. And that's going to be the challenge in front of him, because I think it is really the biggest question for this team. I'm optimistic that he can do that, but so far, like last year, that was not his strength at all. And in this year, he's got to be the leader that brings it all together.
Overall thoughts with spring ball for BYU, pretty much in the rearview mirror. Were there any questions that you had that were answered, or are there still a lot of things that you need yet to be determined coming up into fall camp?
The tight end position will be a real strength for BYU. I was kind of unsure as to what to reasonably expect from two transfers from Big Ten programs that were not consistent starters or guys that were much of a factor for their respective programs. But Walker Lyons and Roger Saliapaga are going to have to be stars for BYU on that offense. And they might be good enough to mask some of the questions at the wide receiver position. And that wide receiver spot I still look at as a little bit of a question mark still. You know, JoJo Phillips is viewed as that number one wide receiver coming out of spring, but is he, you know, that guy that you can rely on every single week? That's kind of to be determined, I think, in the fall. But Lyons and Saliapaga, I think the versatility that they bring at the tight end position, when you pair that up with Barrett Bachmeier, who's really successful over the middle and his accuracy, taking care of the football, I think that's going to be a nice recipe for BYU. So the tight end position feels like it's revived a bit for BYU for the first time since they were members of the Big 12. Carson Ryan was really good last year, but it was him and no one else. This year they seem to have maybe three guys that they could turn to at that spot, and I think that'll be a nice luxury and maybe a different look for BYU that we haven't seen in years past since they joined the league.
So when you look at the pass-catching ability of receivers for BYU, obviously the wide receiver position has taken a bit of a hit with obviously some of the stories in the news as well as graduation. So is that tight end a strength also important, because, you know, you're not necessarily sure out of JoJo Phillips outside of who your wide receiver core is going to be?
Definitely. And I think they give BYU the ability to, you know, put more personnel in at tight end, you know, two tight ends, even maybe three potentially, with Noah Moeaki likely being that third receiving option at the tight end spot. So they've got good talent there. And Roger Saliapaga is a really good athlete. He almost, the way he runs at his size, he's kind of like a wide receiver in some respect. But there were some moments, too, from the wide receivers with Kyler Casper, a transfer from Oregon, 6'6", really talented player, but hasn't done anything in the college ranks to this point. But there's a lot of excitement from coaches and players about him. But I just think that tight end spot is going to be a safety blanket of sorts for Bear Bachmeier. That's what it was with Carson Ryan. But these guys bring more to the table than I think even Ryan did. I think they go to a higher level at that spot. So I thought that was a big takeaway. And I'd also say, too, one thing that I learned as well is I think the offensive line is going to be better this season, too. Left tackle Paki Finau, a transfer from Washington, played primarily at guard for the Huskies. He's going to be at that left tackle spot. There were questions if he was going to be a guard or a tackle for BYU. He holds down the left tackle spot. They keep Andrew Gentry, the Michigan transfer, at right tackle for the second consecutive year, and Finau will likely anchor that left tackle spot. I think they're in a really good spot there at the offensive line. Got pretty good depth as well. A freshman in Batmoli Talo, who was a top 100 recruit. He'll probably be someone that factors into the two deep potentially at that right tackle position. So BYU's got some good numbers at offensive line. I think that's going to be an improved position as well in 2026.
Well, Mitch, we appreciate it. Big day for BYU basketball. I'm a little bummed out. I'm ready for football season and basketball season to begin. I don't want to wait 4 months for this thing to get going. Let's go, man.
I'm with you. I'm ready to go. 143 days until football kicks off. It'll be here before we know it.
Yeah, but who's counting? I love it, man.
That's right.
Hey, appreciate it. Thanks, Mitch.
See you, Scotty.
There he is, Mitch Harper, Cougar Insider right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
This guy actually has friends. Nice. This is Scotty G and Friends on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Hey, a lot of excitement down in Provo. Rob Wright back for another year at BYU for the Cougars for Kevin Young's squad. Joining us now, one of our favorite dudes on the planet. It is Mark Durrant, color analyst for BYU basketball broadcast. Mark, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing great, Scott. It's always a pleasure to talk with you. I miss seeing you, but talking to you will have to do.
Hey, me and Rubes were trying to get together a BYU-Utah State game in the Delta Center. Let's find a way to make that happen.
There's no reason that should not happen. I love those games there. There's been some good ones. And Utah State, man, sounds like you had just an amazing year. What a great team they have been. And, yeah, I'd love to see BYU and Utah State in the Delta Center. I'm in.
Let's go. Let's do it. All right, so when did you feel like BYU – I asked Mitch this, Mitch Harper, on our previous segment. When did you feel like Rob Wright coming back to BYU was a real possibility?
What'd Mitch say? Because I don't want to – if Mitch said it, then that's the right answer. But
yeah, Mitch thought it was always in play. He thought even the day he went into the portal, he thought there was still a good chance he would return to Provo. Just needed to test the market and see what the value was out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a big part of it. Rob did indicate that he wanted to come back to BYU, and if he did come back, he was going to come back to BYU. And I get that people say a lot of things. So, if he hadn't done that, I would have been upset about it, really. I mean, but I think it said something that, he did like being at BYU. And I'm actually kind of surprised in today's world that everybody doesn't go into the portal at this point, just to gauge interest and market value and, see what other options are. I mean, if with your great radio broadcasting ability, I mean, if someone came to you with a lucrative offer and you would consider it. I mean, why wouldn't you consider it and make sure your options were fully vetted out? And but with that said, I mean, if all things being equal, I think, or somewhat equal, that he did like being at BYU, and as a fan, we sure love having him there. And so it's big news. I mean, you never know anymore anything really, right? But I do think he had a good experience this year, and BYU is an organization now that is playing at a high-level conference and has great resources and can now compete with the Kentuckys and even the Dukes and North Carolinas. Maybe they're not quite there yet, but it's not unreasonable for some of the best players now. It's proven that will consider BYU as a realistic option, whereas not long ago that was a ridiculous thing almost to say. But now BYU, I think, is in a position and has a little bit of, I don't know, mojo or what going with Kevin Young and with the resources they have, that they are able to compete for some of the best players in the country.
I think that you hit it on the head, too. If you're a BYU fan, you've got to have a smile on your face because obviously there's a financial aspect to it. And, we're not naive enough to know that think that that's not a big part of it. But at the end of the day, Kentucky's not without a pretty big checkbook involved as well. So just assuming that the numbers are in the same ballpark with each other, the fact that Rob Wright, who spent time at BYU, as a not a member of the LDS faith, as an African-American young man that says, you know what, I still want to go back there. I enjoyed my time there. I enjoyed the coaching staff. I enjoyed the environment, and I want to be back at that school. It goes to show you the kind of grounds that BYU's made up in making this a destination location.
Yeah, I think so. There's been various reasons maybe in the past why BYU had some disadvantages. Obviously, you look at the honor code, and I think that almost is something that is favorable for BYU nowadays, especially with a player like Rob Wright and watching AJ this year. I mean, these guys are serious kind of basketball businessmen type people, and it's not about having that party college experience. They want to go somewhere where they can focus on basketball, and there's a coaching staff that kind of knows the NBA, has good NBA connections. They know that they can, now it'll be a couple years in a row that BYU is going to have a top draft picks, and so I think these guys are serious men, and it's not about where can I go and have a party time. It's about where can I go and get better and then get in the NBA. And so I think that speaks to a lot of different things. Obviously, you can have all the good intentions or good things in the world, but if you're not competitive with the Kentuckys, and I mean, the bottom line is, if you can't pay people, they're going to go where they can get paid. But if, like I said, if you can at least be in the ballpark and then provide an experience with resources and a coaching staff and an environment, in a place like BYU, there's nothing like going to the Marriott Center. It's packed, and it's a great thing, and it's such great fan support. And Utah State also has that going for them. That's a great place to play. It's a great environment, and kids want to play in those types of games and places where it's a big deal. And anyway, that was a long-winded, drawn-out answer, but I do think Rob likes being at BYU for a bunch of reasons, and BYU fans, like I said, love having him. He's just a fun, happy, really pleasant guy. He's just always got a big smile on his face. I watch him interact with the fan base and the kids, and going on the road, and there's people that come watch practice, and he's just so affable and so fun. And he just seems to have a good time out on the floor. It's just very endearing. He's a very, likable and fun and exciting player. And I think he's going to, be a superstar. He was great this year. I think he could be, an All-American type next year. He'll get better and better. He works hard at getting better. Like I said, he takes it very seriously. And so, of course, I'm thrilled. And he's a great kid, and I'm just excited for him and for BYU.
What does the addition of Colin Chandler also add to this team?
Well, I love Colin. I think he's got unbelievable athleticism. I think what Colin's looking for is a lot of what Richie was looking for after his sophomore year. I mean, they're kind of similar trajectories in their career. but a little bit held back, I think, and limited to a certain role. And I think, in talking with Richie, and Richie was, thinking about going to Kentucky after that sophomore year and was in the portal and all those things. And what he was looking for, and talking with his dad and with him, is just he wanted to have a bigger role. And he wasn't just a three-point shooter. And he wanted to be able to create and have the offense kind of run through him and not just be a spot-up three-point shooter. And I think Colin will have a chance to do that. I think he's super athletic and will really be able to blossom. And I think both having Rob there will really help him, and having Colin there will really help Rob. And I think that's a dynamic backcourt. I mean, it's to me automatically one of the best backcourts in the country. And so I'm excited to kind of to untap what Chandler can do, because some of his highlights are just off the charts, and I think he's quick off the dribble. And I think because he'll have more of a freedom to kind of do his thing, it will really help him improve his game. Like I think we saw with Richie over the last couple of years. I think it's going to be a similar trajectory for Colin.
When you build out a team, you got to have depth. You've got to have key role players. And I really think, Mark, when it's January, February, and a late run in March, hopefully as well, that you're going to be talking about Jake Wayleen as an integral part of this team as well. I was around the Utah State coaching staff, and they had absolutely fallen in love with him at Jared Calhoun's group when he was in the portal last year, and eventually ends up at Clemson. But I know there are a lot of coaches that are really fired up about what he can bring to the team, and I think those are the kind of role players that could really provide a nice punch for Kevin Young's crew down there at BYU.
Yeah, I was actually super stoked when I heard about him. I mean, it's funny nowadays, Scotty, that like one day you're like, are we going to have enough guys to put on the court? And then the next day it's like one after the other, you're hearing great news. And I was really impressed. He didn't have the greatest game against BYU this year when they played Clemson, but I really like that 6'8" to 6'11", 3-4 guy who can extend the defense with his three-point shooting, but also has really good size. And I think, if you're talking Colin and Rob, I think you need really good wing. I just love that type of player, that length and that agility at the 3 and 4 spots. So I think BYU's got now some pretty good depth, and there'll be some pretty good battles to help there. But no question, Jake is going to be, he'll be important, really important, and will provide much needed depth, which was a real problem for BYU this year. And I couldn't be more happy about that. And you combine him with Ruckert and Barr and Branch. I mean, it's looking really good now. And now it's kind of like, can BYU find a big man or two to really just kind of round it out? Because as it stands right now, they're looking really good in really every position except for that 5 spot.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Mark, we appreciate you joining us on short notice. Big day today for BYU hoops, but let's get together soon and grab a bite to eat sometime.
And I would love that. I'm just sitting here in my home office, and I'm holding this beautiful pen that my good friend Scotty handmade for me. It's my most prized possession. So anytime I can ever do anything for you, I will do it, my brother.
You got it. I'll, you know what? I think it's time for probably another couple pens coming your way. So we'll get to work on them for you.
Oh, beautiful. I love it, man. Bring them on.
I love it.
Thanks, Scotty.
You got it. There he is. Mark Durrant, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Take a break. Wrap this bad boy up next right here on The Zone.
¿Quieres mejor internet? Cox Internet de 300 megas tiene las velocidades rápidas y confiables que buscas. Perfecto para streaming y gaming y trabajar desde casa. Todo por solo $45 al mes cuando agregas Cox Mobile. Incluye equipo de Wi-Fi y garantía de precio de 2 años en tu plan. No esperes. Cámbiate hoy a Cox. Requiere Cox Mobile Gig Unlimited. Garantía de precio no incluye impuestos y cargos. Velocidad de datos móviles se reduce después de 20 gigas al mes.
Make game day yours.
Tickets, food and drinks, stats, and streaming. Everything you need is in the Utah Mammoth app. Download today and make game night easy. Download on both Android and iPhone. Tusk Top.